structure there. But it's a state bank in the sense that it's a product of statute. Obviously, Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913. Those private bankers wouldn't have that authority if it weren't for that statute. Now, the other area that the Communist Manifesto, of course, was interested in was that it's developing now is this concept of all land was going to be owned by the state. Well, we're coming into that same type of relationship. The land is not all going to be owned by the state, but it's going to be owned by these huge agribusinesses, which are interlocked with the state, these huge agricultural corporations or cartels, which are interlocked with the state in the same way, in essence, that the Federal Reserve is interlocked with the state. So they have a lock over our food supply in the same way that the money people have a lock over our money and credit supply. Right? And it's the same structure. What they learned was the communist system of centralized bureaucracy doesn't work. You need to have centralized bureaucracy interrelated, interleaved, if you will, with quote-unquote private enterprise.
Communism is an evil theory. It is evil at its inception because its overall purpose, its goal, is to eliminate private property and therefore eliminate your rights, including your right to life. Because if the government decides that you are taking up too much space or eating too much food or not complying with the government's demands, then you will simply be eliminated because you have no rights.
This is a very sophisticated, nuanced issue. The similarities between the Civil War in the 1860s between the North and the South and what's happening today with the Declaration of State Sovereignty. We have to be very careful. If you study the history of what happened then, this is on record, mainline history. The British came in and funded the South to begin breaking away from the North, knowing that it would create a protracted war that would weaken the entire system.
Whereas what we're talking about today in terms of these state rebellions, if you will, against federal usurpation is the same in essentially every state. Now, it may not be the same in the sense that the legislature of Massachusetts may not feel as threatened by national health care as the legislature of South Carolina does, but there are a heck of a lot of people in Massachusetts who feel threatened, and a heck of a lot of people in South Carolina who feel threatened. And eventually, if enough people in Massachusetts feel threatened, that legislature will change its tune.
The people in Washington are making decisions that benefit themselves. The American people are beginning to realize that, and we are undergoing a second American Revolution. We're undergoing another change in the way that people think.
Right now we have foreign offshore banks coming in, controlling the federal government to engage in all these oppressive and tyrannical operations against the states that has the states declaring their sovereignty and some threatening to secede, which will then provoke a national crisis, which is what the globalists want. Instead, we need the states to declare their sovereignty, but not secede, and point out that the federal government itself has already seceded to international control. It's not the states that are trying to secede, it's the states that are trying to get the federal government to follow the Bill of Rights and Constitution and not be a gang of traitors and crooks, a bunch of mercenaries working at the behest of offshore corporations.
You are an American citizen and you shall be arrested for having freedom of speech and using the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. The Constitution is a very dangerous concept. Do not dare try to invoke the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. This is no longer America. This is Walmart, United States of America.
For anybody that may not know what the symbol of Don't Tread on Me looks like, basically the most common symbol, the one that would most routinely be seen, is the one where you see a coiled up rattlesnake. And that coiled up rattlesnake is ready to strike. But the symbolism there is, you know, if you don't mess with me, I'm not going to mess with you.
Well, again, I think that when I think about that Don't Tread on Me, I think about the flag, the revolutionary flag. I think about tyranny of government that hoisted on a people from a very long distance away, again, that idea of government being close to the people.
I do this for my children. I do it for my kids. I honestly do. I don't do it for any other reason than for my kids. I would like to see them live in at least a little bit freer of a society than what we have right now.
You know, not being overly reactionary. Personally, I would like to see people just band together and say, no, we're not going to do this. And if push comes to shove, if they push you, do you allow them to push you or do you shove back?
It's up to us to fix the mess. Yes, we thought we could trust them, but it didn't get this bad overnight. It got this bad because the citizens, not everyone, but some citizens, were content to sit in their lazy boy chairs with the remote control, trusting that government will take care of them. And while that may have worked at some time, it never has worked very well through the long course of things. So I want to encourage everybody to do your part to take back America. It might be as simple as just giving a civics lesson to your friends, neighbors, and relatives, but when people hear the truth, they can recognize it. And there's no reason we have to throw away the principles that made us the greatest nation on earth.
We need to get organized on the local level, precincts. Organize in the precincts, organize so that you can turn out voters who believe your way is the main step in turning things around. During a presidential campaign, the 9 months before that is not the time to start trying to get enough people out to support your candidate.
It's important for citizens to get involved. Become a candidate for public office or find a candidate for public office that you support and get engaged in electing people who will express a devotion to a commitment to the clear principles of the United States Constitution.
I have never seen my constituents and people across Missouri so engaged, and I'm sure it's like that in all the states.
The most important people that you can elect that know and understand the Constitution and their responsibility to protect you is your county sheriff and your governor. If you can get those two people on board with protecting you from tyrants, we'll win this battle, and we'll keep this battle and these tea parties peaceful. If not, we're going to watch our country continue to die, and instead of throwing tea in the harbor, we're going to start throwing politicians.
That is in Article 1, Section 8 in the enumerated powers of the Constitution, and if the federal government says they're going to cut off highway funding, for example, for a state, then we should be well within our rights to say that, okay, well, we're going to cut you off then of all federal tax receipts until you release those funds that we have given you to fulfill your enumerated powers.
But the good people of America, through the Patriot Uprising, the Tea Party movement, have banded together and made it clear to our government that we just aren't taking any more. We're not going to sit back and allow you to perpetrate these things against the American people. We are not going to allow you to just ignore this document called the U.S. Constitution, and it is the people of America, not the politicians, the people of America have stopped health control and tax and charade.
Founding Fathers created a country in which the local level is to be the most powerful force on us. If government is going to have any kind of effect on us, particularly it should come from the local level, because that means you can sit down with your local county commissioner or your local city councilman over a cup of coffee or something and say, you know, Harold, I got a problem with this, and you can talk to them. And if they don't do what you want them to do, then you can organize to try to take them out of office.
A larger than expected turnout today for a Tea Party protest. People are upset with the Obama administration. And this time, in addition to signs denouncing government spending, protesters were encouraged to bring their guns.
Well, I think there's a lot of people, myself included, until about a year ago, that basically just trusted our government and believed that they were actually doing what was best for us.
The protesters say the pending health care legislation is a big reason why they're upset. But they're also angry about gun control, big bailouts, and tax increases. They say it's time they're heard.
Well, I would call it sensitizing people to the problem. You have different levels here. There are some people who understand this problem, and then there are others who don't understand the specifics of it, but they know the source of it. And Congress, this problem is located in Congress. And then there's some down below who will understand not only that, but they say, well, I know a solution to it, or I know a direction for a solution. We have to work through the states or what have you. And then you have a vast mass way at the bottom who are feeling the economic and social screws being turned on them. And the one thing they know is they're not responsible for this. They didn't do this. Somebody else did it. And now they're looking around to see who it was. And it has to be people in positions of power that did it. And so they're looking at the financial community, they're looking at the big businessmen, they're looking at the big politicians and say, you people are responsible in some way for this mess that's coming on me, that's being dumped on me. Their first instinct is to ask them to correct it, because they've been told all along that Washington has all the answers, right?